Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing some figure studies in my sketchbook. I'm using a Muji pen and some zebra Mildliners in a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, so feel free to grab your own sketchbook and pens and draw alongside me. Let's jump right in. Today I thought I'd share some tips for drawing anatomy and poses. They're things I've picked up on over the years, and I find that when I intentionally do them, even for just like one single study, I learn something new and improve immediately. I'm not saying following these tips took me from 0 to 100 overnight, but rather, I could tell that after applying some of these in study, the next time I went to work on an illustration, it was easier to start, or I was able to get to a certain point in my drawing more quickly. Anyway, here are the tips. Number 1. Use reference. When studying, your goal is probably to practice drawing more accurate proportions and poses, so using reference helps you to see how things actually look. It can consist of photos of people, anatomical diagrams if those help you, or even real people. The art community can get pretty nitpicky about reference, but I think it's fair game when the purpose is study. Like, let's say you're trying to draw a very particular pose. You could just keep trying to imagine what it'd look like and maybe not figure out why you can't get it quite right, or you could snap a quick photo of yourself doing the pose, then draw based off of that. Reference images help us see how things should look, which enable us to get more familiar with specific shapes, poses, etc. of the human body. That in turn helps us build up our visual libraries so that next time, we can draw more accurately or believably from just our imaginations. And going off of that, my second tip is drawing from life, or drawing what you see in front of you rather than off of something on a screen. This could look like drawing people who walk by you when you're sitting at a coffee shop, or attending a figure drawing session with a live model if you're comfortable with that and it's available to you. This was something I only started doing in college when I took a life drawing class, and it's something that has helped me immensely. As I'm sure we've learned from the past few years, seeing someone in real life is very different from just seeing them on a screen. For drawing, you get a better sense of dimension and form, as well as movement of different parts of the body. If you're only referencing still images, it can be easy to reduce forms down to lines, which can make you forget how different parts of the body connect. When you're drawing a person in front of you, you can shift around a bit to see slightly different points of view around them, which I find gives you a bit more information to work with as you draw. Drawing from life helps you to keep in mind that people are 3D and not 2D, which I think helps prevent your drawings from looking super stiff. If you don't have access to drawing live models, you can always sit down in a public place where lots of people are walking by and quickly draw them. This leads me to my next tip. Tip number 3 is to do lots of quick figure or gesture drawings so you can get more reps in. More reps means more chances to apply knowledge or learn from mistakes. By keeping the drawings quick, like under 1 minute, it takes the pressure off since you accept that it probably won't look like a masterpiece, meaning you won't feel like you've sunk hours into a drawing just to have it turn out really ugly. Back when I was taking that figure drawing class, this was something the teacher had us do a lot. She'd have the model change poses every 10 seconds or so for a few minutes, which forced us to just get any marks down on the paper. By the end of the few minutes, we'd have a bunch of scribbles on the page, but you could see the basic motion in each pose, since that's really all we had time to think about. Outside of figure drawing classes, I've done this by drawing people who walk by when I'm sitting somewhere in public, as well as using the tools on the website called Line of Action, which I'll link below. I find that quickly sketching like this is a great way to warm up, since it eases your brain and hand into the feeling of drawing in a way that avoids getting sucked into perfectionist tendencies. Instead of being hung up on trying to nail each detail perfectly, you focus on quickly capturing the big picture motion of a pose, which helps you mentally get into the zone for drawing. Tip number 4 is to draw a variety of different body types, not just pretty Pinterest girls or whatever your comfort zone is. This is something I have to remind myself to do more since I actually do default to pretty Pinterest people. In fact, the drawings on this spread are all based on Pinterest images, so I decided to open up Line of Action for the drawings on the right, which you'll see in a bit. Anyway, doing this is important because it allows you to understand how different body parts are affected by different bone structures, fat ratios, etc. I find that when drawing body types I don't usually draw, I learn more and have a lot more fun than I expected to. For example, a few years ago, I attempted the 100 Heads challenge, which included reference images of a huge variety of different faces, including types like burly ones, which are very different from what I usually draw. Some of those faces had a lot of wrinkles or strong features on them, and doing studies of those actually felt way more interesting than drawing the generically smooth and pretty models that I usually like to draw. In addition, maybe in the future, you'll work on a drawing where you need to draw people of different genders, races, body shapes, etc. So by practicing those now, you'll be better equipped in the future. Basically, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone because maybe you'll discover something new that you like. And lastly, tip number 5 is to build an understanding of distances and shapes, or at least know how to analyze them. What I mean by this is kind of like understanding proportions. For example, if you're looking at a reference photo of a person, pay attention to any negative space formed between their arms and body, or how long their limbs are in relation to the torso. When drawing from life, you might see artists holding up their pencil and squinting to measure their model and observe these distances. Doing this helps to answer questions like, why does my drawing look off? Or, are the distances between different body parts correct? Or, are elements aligned properly? When you train your eye to analyze those minute distances and shapes, it helps you with your proportions and placement, which in turn helps your drawings look more anatomically correct. For example, in this sketch, points I'd pay attention to are the angle of the torso to the legs, what part of the torso the hand lines up with, the shape of the negative space between the arm and the torso, the shape of the negative space between the legs, and how long the length of the legs is compared to the torso. This skill takes a lot of practice to grow because it partially involves setting aside our preconceived notions of how something ought to look and instead critically observing and analyzing the reference to determine whether elements are placed correctly or not. For example, when we're drawing a face, we might think of the eyes as pretty high up on the head, but if you actually look at an anatomy diagram, the eyes actually sit in the middle of the head. Or if we're painting water, we might just say, water is blue, but the water we're painting is reflecting a sunset, which means it has a lot of oranges and yellows in it. It is a hard skill to grow, but the good thing is that I think it kind of automatically improves the more we practice. And I think that honing this critical eye is what really enables us to become even better artists. Although I mentioned that these tips are helpful when drawing anatomy and poses, they can be applied to drawing other subjects as well, such as landscapes, buildings, animals, etc. I myself paint landscapes, and I've definitely used some of these when working on those. And actually, I have a bonus tip, which is to have fun with it. Drawing doesn't always have to be hardcore intensive studying, it should be something you enjoy doing. For me, when I do these types of sketchbook studies, I like to keep them loose and quick because I don't usually have the time, patience, or desire to spend hours rendering a practice pose. I'm still getting the pose practice, but it doesn't feel like a chore. I know I said it's good to challenge yourself to draw tougher subjects in order to grow, but I also believe it's important to balance it out by drawing fun, self-indulgent things as well, because otherwise you'll burn out. Anyway, those are all the tips I have, so enjoy the rest of this time lapse, and I'll see you at the end of the video. And here are the finished sketches. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sort of video. Let me know in the comments if you have any drawing tips you want to share, or if you want me to make more tips videos like this. If you want to see or support more of my art, feel free to check out my Instagram, shop, and Patreon. The links are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.